Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, Adam Draws Stuff. I'm Adam and I draw stuff, and today I'm not drawing anything. Today I wanted to take you through some of the materials that I use when I'm drawing. I've gotten asked a lot on Instagram especially, and a little bit here too, everything that I use, like pencils, paper, just everything in general that I use. So I figured we'll cover that today. Let's jump in and I'll give you a quick rundown of everything that I use to make a drawing. First things first,
I'm the realist.
second thing, paper. I use this Canson. This is my favorite brand. It's pretty, I mean, it's not super expensive, and it's not the cheapest either, but this for me is what I prefer the best. I tend to do more like realistic drawings, and I like to put a lot of detail in them, and smooth paper really works well for that. There's like a million different kinds of paper out there, all different textures, but I like really bright white paper, and this is kind of thick and very smooth. So the reason that I like smooth paper, or that if you wanted to do any kind of really detailed drawing that you would want to use smooth paper too, is because any paper that has kind of a rough texture is going to smear a lot. Whenever you try to do any kind of fine detail work, you're not going to be able to get the tiniest little lines, and you're going to have to work really, really hard to not smear. So I like this. This is Bristol by Canson, and it is smooth. It was like 10 bucks at Hobby Lobby, so it's not too expensive, but it's not the cheapest either. There's only 25 sheets in here. And this I do for just regular drawings. I don't really use this as like a sketch pad or sketchbook. I do have a version here that's very similar that I use for a sketchbook, and this is it's not exactly the same paper, but it's pretty smooth also, and it's a little bit thicker than a regular sketchbook. Like this is ink here, and it didn't bleed through the back, so that's a pretty good thing. But this is just kind of everyday whatever. This one was also from Hobby Lobby, about 6 bucks. So that is paper. The next most important thing, I guess, would be pencils, and I really like mechanical pencils. I tend to use those a lot over traditional pencils. The reason being is mechanical pencils always maintain a really fine point. You never have to sharpen them, you never have to worry about if you're gonna have a dull edge or anything like that. They always stay perfectly sharp, and I love that about them. And I have 3 different grades here. There's a 2B, HB, and a 2H. The only downside about mechanical pencils is that you can't get the wide range of grades that you can with typical traditional pencils. They're always a little bit harder by nature because the graphite has to be compressed into really tiny sticks. So that's kind of a downside, but it's worth it. For me anyway. If you don't like doing detail work, then maybe you don't necessarily need to use these. A regular pencil would probably work just fine, but I really like these a lot. They're very reliable, and you just always know what's going to happen as soon as you put it down on the paper. The other thing that I also like to use for a pencil is a Prismacolor, one more time, a Prismacolor black colored pencil. And I use this because, like I said, you can't get the really dark ranges or the really light ranges. You know, you're kind of stuck in the middle with mechanical pencils. And this, once my drawing is all done and everything's blended the way that I want it to be, I will go in with a black Prismacolor pencil, and that'll give me the really deep blacks that I can't get with the mechanical pencils. The only downside to doing this is that there's really no room for error. So once you put it down on the paper, you really can't erase at all. And I'll show you what I mean. That's the best I could do. Colored pencil does not erase. So if you're going to do, add in some darker tones with a colored pencil, definitely do this part last. After all the shading is done, all the blending, you have everything the way that you want it, go in with a black colored pencil to kind of add some more contrast and add some darker values. But do it last because you cannot change it. Also, in the same vein as pencils, I don't do anything with colored pencils a whole lot, but when I do, I use just regular Prismacolor Premier colored pencils, and again, because I don't use them very much, I only have a set of 24, and that's basically good enough for whenever I do decide to use them. It's enough. I'm not going to spend a ton of money on a bunch of colored pencils that I'm never going to use. So these are one of the best. Everybody knows them, loves them, uses them, so definitely a good brand if you want to check out colored pencils. And if you don't want to spend a lot of money in the beginning, get this one here, a 24 pack. It's pretty, I don't remember how much it was, but it wasn't expensive at all. And it's a good place to start. So for some more finishing things, I will also use a black, can you see that? I don't know, you're not gonna be able to see that. Anyway, a black fine liner. This is a Faber-Castell artist pen, and it's well, it just says extra small. I don't remember what millimeter it is, but this I will go in with and just do outlining. I don't outline everything that I do because, again, I like to kind of do a lot of realism, but especially when I'm doing a video here, this shows up on camera a little bit better. Once I'm done doing the drawing, I'll go in and outline with this, and it just makes everything more visible for the camera. Also, again, to add some more contrast, when I'm finished with the drawing, I will go in with a white Jelly Roll pen and just add some white highlights. And this is really great also if you're using toned paper. So if you're using like a gray or like a brown or beige toned paper that's not bright white, you can go in and add this white ink on top as kind of like a finishing thing to add some extra contrast and to really just polish it and finish up your drawing. Another tool that is super important is a blending stump. And these things are super cheap. You can get a pack of them for like $1 at Hobby Lobby or Michael's or any kind of art store like that. They are super cheap and they also last forever. Especially if you get a like a little piece of sandpaper. You don't really sharpen these at all, but when it does get dirty or when the point kind of gets a little bit dull, all you have to do is rub it on sandpaper, and it cleans the end of it and also sharpens the tip so that you can keep a nice fine point. But these are great for blending, not so great for blending large areas, but definitely good for blending, you know, smaller details, because you can get that point pretty sharp and really get into some finer areas. For blending larger areas, I will typically use this right here, a chamois. And this is just a kind, I think it's a kind of leather actually. But it's super soft, it's really smooth and thin, and this is great for blending out bigger areas where it wouldn't make so much sense to use a blending stump. You can use this guy right here and you can blend out a big area and make it very seamless and uniformly blended. Okay, so next is erasers. I use 3 different types of erasers. Traditional, I don't know what you call it, like a gum eraser, and this is by Moo? What's that say? Nayana? I don't know. It was just one that I found somewhere. Probably at Hobby Lobby because that's where I get everything. But anyway, just a regular, typical rubber eraser. And then, of course, a kneaded eraser. And if you don't have one of these, I highly suggest that you get one. Again, they're super cheap, but they're very, very versatile and they last forever. These are really good for getting into erasing some fine details, like picking up highlights and things like that, because you can kind of shape it and get it into a really fine point, like that. But also, if you want to erase without smearing, it's really easy to just press it onto the paper. And because it's kind of sticky, it just lifts the graphite right off the paper. And you can do that without smudging or smearing or anything like you would with one of these guys. And then lastly, I also use a Mondo eraser, and that's like a little clickable eraser. It kind of is like a mechanical pencil. And I use this similarly to the kneaded eraser because it has such a small point, and it's also just really good for erasing small details where a typical big eraser like this just wouldn't be as easy to work with. The only other thing I do is I always have little scratch pieces of paper here, and I use those for kind of covering the drawing that I'm working with so that I'm not smearing it all over. And also for, as you can see, like if I'm picking a color out of the colored pencils and I don't know exactly how it's going to look, or a combination of colored pencils, I'll just mark them here on a little scratch piece of paper real quick, just so I know what to expect when I put it on my actual drawing. And that's about it. They're just handy things to have around. Otherwise, I'm probably forgetting something, but I think that about covers it. That's definitely everything that you would need to do any kind of drawing. Like I said, I typically like to do more realistic drawings, something like this. So a lot of the things that I use are really geared toward that, but everything here is just, it's kind of very generic. So it would work for any kind of drawings that you would want to do, whether it's realistic or, you know, not so much, more cartoony, whatever, it doesn't matter. All of these things would work very well for you. And also all of these things are very affordable. I don't typically tend to buy very expensive art supplies because with a few exceptions, you can get by just as well with something that is a lot less expensive. I feel like I'm forgetting something. And I'm very fidgety today too. I gotta put this thing down. Okay, we're done. We're done. This is enough. Okay, well there you go. That's everything that I use on a typical basis to do any kind of regular drawing. Hopefully you got some use out of this, and maybe maybe you can pick up some of these things if you don't have them and give them a try, put them to use, see if it's something that you want to incorporate. Put them to use, give them a try, see if it's something that you want to incorporate in your drawings. As always, thanks for watching. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't, because I have plenty more things coming out. More tutorials, more videos like this, and some other stuff too. Again, thanks for watching. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one.